The rain hammered against the 42nd floor windows of Meridian Tower, where Donovan Merrick stood watching his $17 billion empire. At 53, he commanded everything money could buy: private jets, Italian suits, homes scattered across 3 continents. Yet the woman who had just entered his boardroom was about to prove that some debts can't be paid with money. She moved differently than his usual visitors. No nervous energy, no desperate pitch in her voice. Just absolute certainty, like someone holding a winning lottery ticket they'd waited 20 years to cash. "Hello, Mr. Merrick. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Her voice stopped him cold. Something familiar lived in those syllables, something that reached into his chest and squeezed. He turned from the window, and for the first time in his celebrated career, Donovan Merrick found himself completely unprepared. The young woman before him had eyes he recognized, not from board meetings or industry conferences, but from somewhere deeper, somewhere he'd buried under decades of success stories and stock options. "My name is Catherine Ashford," she said, extending her hand with practiced confidence. "I'm the CEO of Quantum Dynamics." Quantum Dynamics, the startup that had been systematically destroying his market share, the company that had poached his best talent, undercut his contracts, and turned his shareholders nervous. This woman, this polished executive who couldn't be much past 20, had been the ghost haunting his spreadsheets. "Ms. Ashford," he shook her hand, noting her grip, firm, uncompromising. "Your company has been aggressive." She smiled, but warmth never reached those familiar eyes. "I learned from the best. After all, you wrote the playbook on hostile takeovers, didn't you? How many smaller companies did Meridian consume on its way to the top? Here's the part that changes everything. Success built on abandoned foundations always crumbles. Always. The universe keeps perfect records, and payment comes due in ways you never see coming. I'm not here to pitch you anything," she continued, opening her portfolio with deliberate precision. "I'm here to inform you that Quantum Dynamics will be acquiring Meridian's entire Pacific Northwest division. The paperwork will reach your board tomorrow morning." The audacity should have angered him. Instead, Donovan found himself studying her face, searching for confirmation of what his racing heart already suspected. This wasn't just business rivalry. This was something else entirely. Something that started 20 years ago in a cramped apartment above a Chinese restaurant, when he made the choice that would define everything. If you've ever wondered whether our worst decisions come back to collect interest, hit that subscribe button, because this story proves they do. But first, let me take you back to the morning that started this 20-year war between father and daughter. 20 years earlier, the apartment above Ming's Chinese restaurant told a different story. No marble floors here, no panoramic views, just water stains on the ceiling and the persistent smell of cooking oil mixed with something else. Morning sickness that had lasted 4 months instead of 3. Catherine sat on their second-hand couch, holding the pregnancy test like evidence in a trial. She'd taken 3 tests that morning, all positive. Each one purchased from a different pharmacy because somehow that might change the result. The 4th test, the expensive digital one, sat on the coffee table between them, its message clear: pregnant 3+ weeks. Donovan paced their tiny living room, 6 steps to the window, 6 steps back. He'd been doing this for an hour ever since she'd told him. His laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, showing their bank balance, $342.67. Rent was due in 8 days, $100 they didn't have. "We can make this work," Catherine said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion written across her face. She still wore her scrubs from her 12-hour shift at Portland General. "I can pick up extra shifts in the cardiac unit. The overtime pays time and a half. You're already working 60 hours a week." Donovan stopped pacing, his back to her. Outside, someone was arguing in Mandarin with the restaurant delivery driver. Normal Tuesday morning sounds that suddenly felt like they belonged to someone else's life. "Other people manage with less," Catherine continued. "My supervisor had twins on a nurse's salary. She made it work." Her husband didn't have a failing tech startup burning through their credit cards. The words came out sharper than intended. Donovan turned to face her, and Catherine saw something in his expression that made her stomach drop. Not anger, not fear, calculation. He was looking at their situation like one of his business problems, searching for the optimal solution. The Hartman Group meeting is Friday, he said. If I get their investment, we could stabilize, maybe. That's wonderful. They want founders with total focus. No distractions, no divided commitments. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through an email. Listen to this. We invest in founders who eat, sleep, and breathe their companies. Family obligations are the #1 killer of startup success. Catherine stood, one hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. A baby isn't a distraction, Donovan. It's our child. Roland Pike called yesterday. The statement hung between them like a blade. Your old roommate from MIT? The one in Singapore? His venture capital firm needs a technical director. 2-year minimum commitment. Donovan set his phone down carefully, like he was defusing a bomb. The signing bonus is $75,000, enough to fund Meridian for a year, enough to hire real developers instead of freelancers, enough to actually build something instead of just dreaming about it. The room suddenly felt smaller. Catherine could hear her own heartbeat loud and fast. Singapore is 8,000 miles away. I know the distance. When would you? She couldn't finish the question. 2 weeks. They need someone by month's end. Catherine sank back onto the couch. The cushion wheezed under her weight, springs long past their prime. You already accepted, didn't you? Silence was his answer. How long have you known about this job? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You've been planning to leave for 3 weeks, and you're just telling me now? After I tell you about the baby? I was going to discuss it with you. When? After you were already on the plane? Catherine's voice cracked. Or were you going to send me an email from 30,000 feet? Donovan moved toward the bedroom. I need to pack. The visa paperwork. Don't you dare walk away from this conversation. Catherine was on her feet now, blocking his path. We're married, Donovan. We made vows. For better or worse, remember? I remember everything. His voice had gone cold, corporate, the tone he used for firing contractors. I remember telling you when we met that Meridian came first. That building this company was my only goal. You said you understood. I understood not yet. I didn't understand never. Well, now you do. The brutality of it stole her breath. Catherine pressed her back against the wall, needing something solid to hold her up. What about the baby? What about it? Donovan pulled out his checkbook, an ancient thing they barely used anymore. I can send money when I'm established. Singapore pays in Singapore dollars, but the conversion rate? I don't want your money. The words came out as a whisper, then stronger. I want my husband. I want our child's father. You want someone I can't be. He wrote a check, tore it free with precise movements. 5,000. It's everything I can access from the business account without triggering penalties. For medical expenses. Catherine didn't take it. The check floated to the floor between them. You're really going to abandon us? The question hung in the stale apartment air. Your pregnant wife? Your unborn child? I'm being practical. You're a cardiac nurse with excellent health insurance. You have a support system. Your sister lives 20 minutes away. You'll manage. I'll manage? Catherine's voice rose for the first time. I'm 26 years old, Donovan. We were supposed to build a life together, have a family together, grow old together. That was your dream, not mine. No, that was our dream. Or did you lie about that too? Donovan picked up his laptop, closing it with a decisive snap. Meridian is the only child I ever wanted, the only legacy that matters to me. I'm sorry you thought differently. Catherine studied his face, searching for any sign of the man who had proposed to her just 18 months ago. The man who had promised her everything, who had talked about the future like it was something they'd build together. That man was gone, replaced by this stranger in a rumpled t-shirt and yesterday's jeans. You're a coward, she said finally. You're not leaving because it's best for your company. You're leaving because you're terrified. Terrified of being a father. Terrified of being needed. Terrified of loving something you can't control with a spreadsheet. Maybe. He moved past her toward the bedroom. But at least I'm honest about what I want. What you want is to run away. What I want is to succeed. He paused at the bedroom door. And I can't do that here. Not with this. Not with you. The check still lay on the floor between them. $5,000. The price he'd put on their marriage, their child, their future. Catherine bent down, picked it up, and very deliberately tore it into pieces. Get out! Catherine! Get out now, or I call my brother. Your choice. He left that night, staying at a motel near the airport. 10 days later, he boarded a flight to Singapore. Catherine didn't go to see him off. She'd already filed for divorce, citing abandonment. She also included one other document, a legal notice that she wanted no financial support, no contact, no acknowledgement of paternity. If he wanted to abandon them, it would be complete. From his window seat, Donovan told himself this was right. Clean breaks healed faster. Catherine would remarry, find someone better suited for domestic life. The child would never know him, never miss him, never wonder why Daddy chose code over bedtime stories. By the time he landed in Singapore, he'd almost convinced himself it was true. Now, what would you do if your spouse chose money over your unborn child? Drop a comment below, but keep watching, because Catherine's response changed everything. Singapore transformed Donovan Merrick into exactly what he'd always wanted to be, untouchable. The first year, he lived on instant noodles and 4 hours of sleep, coding until his vision blurred. His apartment was a mattress on the floor and 3 monitors on a folding table. Roland Pike's firm gave him resources, but Donovan gave them results. The trading algorithm he developed generated $43 million in profits within 18 months. His bonus check had so many zeros, the bank manager personally called to confirm it wasn't fraud. By year 3, Meridian Technologies had gone from concept to corporation. Donovan returned to America with $12 million in funding and a reputation for being ruthless. He acquired his first competitor, a small firm in Seattle, by hiring away their entire development team in a single weekend. The CEO called him, crying on the phone. Donovan hung up mid-sob. "You don't build empires with empathy," he told a Fortune interviewer in year 5, when Meridian went public at a $2 billion valuation. The quote became his trademark, printed on the cover of his autobiography. Cold Code, Building Tomorrow Without Yesterday's Baggage. Year 7 brought the society wedding. Patricia Rothwell, heiress to a pharmaceutical fortune, needed a power match for her political ambitions. Donovan needed connections in healthcare sector contracts. They planned their marriage like a merger, complete with PowerPoint presentations about mutual benefits. The wedding cost $3 million and made the Times Society pages. The divorce 2 years later cost him $15 million and made the tabloids. "You're incapable of love," Patricia told him during the settlement. "You're just algorithms in an expensive suit." She was wrong. He was capable of love. He loved Meridian. He loved watching smaller companies crumble beneath his strategic moves. He loved the fear in competitors' eyes when he entered a boardroom. Year 12, Meridian hit $10 billion in valuation. Donovan bought the penthouse in Meridian Tower, 8,000 square feet of marble and glass. He'd stand at those windows at night, looking down at the city lights and feel absolutely nothing. Success, it turned out, was the best anesthetic ever invented. Meanwhile, 8 blocks away in Portland, Catherine was discovering that revenge required patience. The night Donovan left, she'd collapsed on their bathroom floor, sobbing until her ribs ached. But morning came, as it always does, and with it came decisions. She kept the baby, worked double shifts until her feet swelled so badly she had to buy shoes 2 sizes larger. Her sister Marie moved in during the final trimester, sleeping on that same worn couch where Catherine had shown Donovan the pregnancy test. The delivery almost took her life. 37 hours of labor, emergency cesarean. The daughter she named Catherine, after herself, because Donovan had forfeited any right to input, weighed 4 pounds, 2 ounces. The NICU bills reached 6 figures. Catherine paid them off over 5 years, 1 extra shift at a time. But here's what Donovan never knew. Catherine had inherited something from him. His obsession, his drive, his absolute unwillingness to accept defeat. While he was building Meridian in boardrooms, she was building something else in night school. Biomedical engineering degree earned between breastfeedings and diaper changes. Her thesis on integrated healthcare AI systems caught the attention of venture capitalists who didn't care that she presented with baby formula stains on her blazer. Ashford Biomedical started in her garage when young Catherine was 3. The child would play with blocks while her mother built algorithms. By the time the girl was 7, Catherine had 8 employees. By 10, 40 employees and their first major patent. By 15, Ashford Biomedical was the fastest growing healthcare technology firm on the West Coast. Why Ashford? An investor once asked. Why not keep your married name? Because Merrick was never really mine, Catherine replied, and I wanted my daughter to have a name that meant something. Ashford, from the Old English. It means ford by the ash trees, a place to cross dangerous waters. Young Catherine grew up brilliant and driven, watching her mother work 18-hour days without complaint. She learned coding before cursive, built her first app at 11, got into MIT at 16, the same school where her parents had met, though she didn't know that yet. Catherine Sr. never mentioned Donovan, not once. When teachers asked about the father, she said simply, "He's not in our lives." When young Catherine asked why she didn't have a dad like other kids, her mother replied, "Sometimes people aren't capable of being what we need them to be. That's not your fault or mine. It's just truth." The truth was more complex. Catherine Sr. had spent 20 years not just building a company, but architecting something much more intricate. Every move calculated, every success deliberate. She'd named her daughter after herself, but gave her the middle name she'd once dreamed of giving a child with Donovan. Grace. Catherine Grace Ashford. The same initials as Catherine Grace Anderson, the name she'd carried when she believed in happy endings. Like this video, if you believe some choices can never be undone, because what happens next will test that belief. Young Catherine Grace Ashford discovered her father's identity by accident at 15. MIT's library, researching for an advanced placement project on corporate AI integration. His face stared back from an 18-year-old top business magazine cover. The prodigy who conquered Silicon Valley. Same eyes she saw in the mirror every morning. Same determined jaw. Same distinctive way of tilting his head when thinking. Her mother found her that night, surrounded by printed articles, laptop open to Meridian's corporate history. 18 years of careful silence shattered by a Google search. "Why didn't you tell me?" Catherine asked, holding up Donovan's autobiography. "Because you deserve better than wondering why you weren't enough to make him stay." Her mother's voice carried no anger, just exhaustion. "He made his choice. We made ours." Young Catherine spent 3 years studying 2 things: advanced biomedical engineering at MIT, graduating at 18, and Donovan Merrick. She dissected his business strategies like specimens in her lab courses, learned his patterns, his weaknesses, the way he always left defensive gaps when attacking, assuming no one would dare counterstrike. By 18, fresh out of MIT, she'd founded Quantum Dynamics with her mother's blessing and her mother's final gift. Catherine Sr. had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months to live. Maybe 8. "Make him remember us," her mother whispered from her hospital bed. "Not through anger, through excellence. Show him what he threw away." Catherine Sr. died 4 months later. Her daughter held her hand, promising to build something that would eclipse Meridian's shadow. Not just a company, a reckoning. Now, 20 years after Donovan abandoned them, with young Catherine just turned 20, that promise had brought her to this moment, standing in Donovan Merrick's boardroom while rain hammered against windows he'd paid $12 million to own. "You seem surprised, Mr. Merrick." She closed her portfolio with practiced precision. "Didn't your analysts warn you about quantum dynamics? We've been quite aggressive in the market." "My analysts track competitors." His voice stayed level, professional. "They didn't mention you specifically." "They wouldn't. I prefer to let my work speak first." She moved to the window, standing exactly where he'd stood moments before. The gesture wasn't random. Nothing about this woman seemed random. "Beautiful view. You can see the whole city from here, including the medical district." The medical district, where Portland General stood, where Catherine, her mother, had worked all those years ago, 20 years back when she was pregnant and alone. "Your hostile takeover won't succeed," Donovan said, finding his footing again. "Meridian has defended against bigger threats than an 18-month-old startup." "Hostile?" She turned back to him, and for the first time he saw her smile. Not warm, not cold. Something far more dangerous. Satisfied. "This isn't hostile, Mr. Merrick. This is inevitable. You see, while you were buying yachts and divorcing trophy wives, your company got comfortable. Lazy. Meridian hasn't innovated in 5 years. You've just been acquiring other people's innovations. That's strategic growth. That's fear of becoming irrelevant. Your stock has been flat for 17 months. Your board is nervous. Your shareholders are looking for exits. She pulled out a tablet, swiping through documents with surgical efficiency. Meanwhile, Quantum Dynamics just posted 300% growth. Our biometric authentication system makes yours look like a flip phone at an iPhone convention. The room seemed to shrink. Donovan recognized this feeling, the walls closing in, the ground shifting beneath supposedly solid foundations. He'd created this feeling in dozens of CEOs over the years. Now it was his turn to taste it. Your Phoenix data center runs on legacy systems you've been meaning to upgrade for 3 years, she continued. Your board has delayed it 4 times to preserve quarterly profits. One targeted breach would cost you millions in compliance fines. Donovan's jaw tightened. That information wasn't public. Your CFO, Harrison Wells, has been interviewing with competitors for 6 months. Your head of development just bought a house in Austin. Strange choice for someone supposedly committed to Portland. And your biggest client, Nexus Financial, has an escape clause in their contract that activates in 30 days. You've done your homework. I've done more than that. She set the tablet on his conference table. I've already triggered Nexus's exit clause. They'll announce tomorrow. Harrison starts at my company Monday. Your development team received offer letters this morning. 70% salary increase plus equity that actually means something. You're trying to destroy my company. Destroy? Another smile, sharper this time. No, Mr. Merrick, I'm acquiring it. Piece by piece, division by division, employee by employee. The same way you built it, by taking what others created and making it yours. That's business. That's exactly what I thought you'd say. After all, you wrote that in your autobiography. Page 247, if memory serves. Business is war by other means. The weak fail. The strong survive. Emotion is the enemy of success. She paused at his desk, fingers tracing the mahogany edge. Funny thing about that philosophy, it assumes you'll always be the strong one. But strength can skip generations, can't it? Sometimes the child surpasses the parent. Sometimes the abandoned become the acquirers. What exactly do you want? Everything. The word hung between them like a blade. I want Meridian. I want your empire. I want you to watch it transfer to someone more deserving. And you think you're that someone? I know I am. You see, Mr. Merrick, I inherited something from both my parents. From my mother, I got determination and integrity. From my father, well, from him I got the ability to destroy without remorse. The words hit like ice water. From my father. 20 years, she said softly. That's how long you've been building this empire. 20 years since you left Portland for Singapore. Since you chose Meridian over everything else. Poetic that it should take exactly 20 years for that choice to come full circle. Have you ever witnessed someone get exactly what they deserved, good or bad? This next part shows why every choice echoes through generations. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. 3 months. That's all it took for Catherine Grace Ashford to dismantle what Donovan Merrick spent 20 years building. Week 1. Nexus Financial's departure announcement crashed Meridian's stock 12%. Donovan called an emergency board meeting, assured everyone it was a temporary setback. Then his CFO, Harrison Wells, didn't show up. His resignation letter arrived during the meeting, sent from Quantum Dynamics headquarters. Week 3, the Phoenix data center breach happened exactly as Catherine predicted. Not malicious. She was too smart for that. Just a security firm's routine penetration test that exposed vulnerabilities Meridian had ignored. The compliance fines hit 8 figures. The repair costs hit 9. She's orchestrating this, Donovan told his remaining executives during a crisis meeting. Marcus, his CTO, studied the quarterly projections on his tablet. Of course she is, Marcus replied. The question is why you didn't see it coming. Quantum Dynamics has been positioning for this for over a year. They hired Sarah Brennan from our Singapore office 8 months ago. She knew our entire Asian expansion strategy. Week 5. 14 of Meridian's top engineers accepted Quantum's offers. Not just any engineers, the ones who'd built Meridian's core architecture. Catherine didn't just want employees, she wanted institutional knowledge, the DNA of Donovan's empire. She appeared at industry events like a ghost haunting his success. The Technovation Summit in San Francisco, where she won Innovation Leader of the Year, an award Donovan had won 3 times. The Venture Capital Forum in Austin, where she announced Quantum's Series C funding, $200 million, triple Meridian's last raise. She's using your own playbook, Patricia, his ex-wife, told him over coffee. She'd called him out of the blue, said she was worried. Really, she wanted to witness his downfall up close. Remember when you destroyed Apex Systems in 2015? Hired their entire R&D department over a weekend? She learned from the master. Week 8. The Singapore office imploded. Roland Pike, Donovan's oldest ally, called at 3 in the morning Portland time. She's got our entire client list, every contract, every relationship we built. My own people are feeding her information. It's like they want her to win. They did want her to win. That became clear when the first profile piece appeared in TechCrunch. The prodigy taking down an empire. It painted Catherine as the future and Donovan as the past. Young versus old, innovation versus stagnation. David versus a Goliath who'd gotten fat and slow. But week 12 brought the killing blow. Sins of the father, the secret family behind tech's biggest battle. The Business Insider expose hit on a Tuesday morning. Someone had leaked everything. The MIT connection, the abandonment 20 years ago, Catherine Sr.'s death, the uncashed check still sitting in a Portland bank account, accumulating 2 decades of interest. Donovan read it in his penthouse office, that same rain-soaked sanctuary where this had all started. His phone exploded with calls he didn't answer. Board members, reporters, shareholders demanding explanations. The narrative shifted overnight. This wasn't corporate warfare anymore. This was biblical. The child returning to claim her birthright. The abandoned daughter bringing judgment to the father who chose money over family. Mr. Merrick, his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. The board is calling an emergency session. They're discussing your position as CEO. His position, 20 years of absolute control, now reduced to a discussion item on someone else's agenda. The stock market delivered its own verdict. Meridian dropped 37% in 3 hours. Trading halted twice. When it resumed, Catherine was there, buying every share that panicked investors dumped. She wasn't destroying Meridian to watch it burn. She was destroying it to own it. The financial press had a field day. Merrick's meltdown. The empire strikes back. Quantum leap. How a 20-year-old is conquering Silicon Valley. Each headline another nail in the coffin of his reputation. That night, Donovan stood at his penthouse windows, city lights blinking below like stars he'd never reach. His reflection stared back, older, grayer, defeated. The apartment felt like a mausoleum, 8,000 square feet of marble and loneliness. His phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. He almost deleted it, then saw the attachment. A photo of Catherine Sr.'s grave. The headstone read, Catherine Ann Ashford, mother, fighter, undefeated. The message below was just 3 words. She never forgot. Neither had her daughter, apparently. Marcus resigned the next morning, effective immediately. Then the entire Seattle team, the Denver office managing director. One by one, Donovan's generals abandoned the battlefield. They could see what he was still struggling to accept. The war was already over. The irony tasted like ash. He'd written in his autobiography that emotion was the enemy of success. But emotion, a daughter's grief, a mother's dying wish, 20 years of carefully cultivated anger, that's what had destroyed him. Not a competitor's innovation or market forces or regulatory changes. Just the simple, devastating power of consequences finally coming home. His empire hadn't been conquered by a rival. It had been reclaimed by the life he'd thrown away. The penthouse felt smaller with each passing hour. The city below continued its rhythm, indifferent to his collapse. Somewhere out there, Catherine Grace Ashford was planning her next move. Somewhere out there, his daughter was winning the war he didn't even know he'd been fighting. The boardroom at Meridian Tower had witnessed hostile takeovers before, but nothing like this. Donovan Merrick entered through the executive entrance at exactly 9 o'clock, carrying a single manila folder. The 12 board members were already seated, their faces ranging from furious to terrified. At the far end of the table sat Catherine Grace Ashford, 20 years old and in complete control. "Before anyone speaks," Donovan said, setting down the folder, "I have an announcement." Richard Steinberg, the lead board member, leaned forward. "Donovan, we've discussed this. We fight. We've beaten hostile takeovers before. Not this time." Donovan's voice carried a strange calm. 3 months of warfare had changed him, hollowed him out, and filled him with something he hadn't felt in decades: clarity. "I'm resigning. Effective immediately." The room erupted, voices overlapping, chairs scraping, hands slamming the table. Only Catherine remained still, watching him with those familiar eyes. Her mother's eyes. His eyes. "Furthermore," Donovan continued, raising his voice above the chaos, "I'm transferring all my shares, 42% of Meridian Industries, to Ms. Ashford." Silence. Complete suffocating silence. "You're giving her the company?" Steinberg's voice cracked. $40 billion in equity. Have you lost your mind?" "No." Donovan opened the folder, revealing transfer documents already signed and notarized. "I've found it. 20 years too late, but found nonetheless." Catherine finally spoke. "What's your angle?" "No angle. No strategy. No hidden play." He slid the documents across the table. They stopped exactly in front of her. "You've already won. This just makes it official. Meridian is yours." "Just like that?" "Not quite." He met her gaze directly for the first time since she'd walked into his office 3 months ago. "I have one condition. Not for the shares. Those are yours regardless. But a personal request." Her jaw tightened. Here it comes, she was thinking. The trap. The manipulation. One dinner. That's all. One conversation between a father who failed and the daughter he never knew. "You can say everything you need to say. Call me every name I've earned. Tell me about your mother, about your life, about the 20 years I missed. And then we never have to speak again." "You think one dinner fixes 20 years? "No, nothing fixes 20 years. But your mother—" His voice caught. The board members looked away, uncomfortable with this display of humanity from a man they'd known only as a corporate machine. "Your mother tried to tell me about you, sent letters I never opened, called numbers I changed. She never gave up hoping I'd want to know you. One dinner isn't for me, it's for her, to honor that hope, even if it comes 20 years too late." Catherine's composure cracked, just barely. A muscle in her cheek twitched. Her mother's name still had power here. "That's emotional manipulation." "That's the truth. Something I haven't been good at, but I'm trying." He pushed back from the table, standing. "The lawyers can handle the transfer. Quantum Dynamics and Meridian will merge under your leadership. The board will resist, but with my shares, you have majority control. The empire is yours." "Why?" The question came out smaller than she intended. Not the corporate warrior speaking now, but the child who'd wondered for 20 years why her father didn't want her. "Because empires built on abandoned families aren't worth keeping. Because your mother was right and I was wrong. Because you didn't just beat me at business. You showed me what I actually lost 20 years ago. Not money, not opportunity. A daughter who inherited my drive, but your mother's heart. That combination is what really conquered Meridian. Not hostile takeover tactics, not corporate warfare, just the simple truth that you're better at this than I am because you understand what actually matters." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "The dinner offer stands. No pressure, no timeline. My contact information is in the folder. If you never call, I'll understand. But I'll be hoping you do." "Donovan," Steinberg called out, "you can't just walk away. You built this company on the wrong foundation. Miss Ashford will build it better." He looked back at Catherine one last time. "Your mother would be proud, not because you won, but because of how you won. With precision, with purpose, and with the kind of determination that can only come from love, even if that love was born from abandonment." He left then, walking out of the empire he'd spent 20 years building. Behind him, board members erupted in arguments and accusations. But Catherine sat quietly, staring at the transfer documents that gave her everything she'd fought for. Everything except the one thing money couldn't buy, those 20 lost years. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. The offer isn't about forgiveness. It's about understanding. Your mother understood that. She always knew you'd need to hear my side, not for my sake, but for yours. To know that walking away from you was the worst decision of my life. One dinner, that's all. If this story is hitting differently than you expected, subscribe and ring the notification bell, because the ending will change how you see success forever. Pioneer Square sat 40 floors below Meridian Tower, a small Italian restaurant that had survived 3 decades of Portland's evolution. No valet parking, no sommelier, just red-checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic bread. Donovan arrived 30 minutes early, chose a corner table away from windows. He'd eaten at 3 Michelin-star restaurants across 6 continents, but tonight, this felt right. Catherine walked in at exactly 7 o'clock. No power suit this time. Jeans, a Portland State University sweatshirt, her mother's wedding ring on a chain around her neck. He recognized it immediately, even after 20 years. She sat down without greeting him. The waiter approached, but she waved him off. You wanted to talk, so talk. I don't know where to start. Try the beginning, October 15th, 2005, the day you left. Donovan set his hands flat on the table. Steady them. Steady himself. I was 24. Meridian had just gotten its first major investment, $50 million. The board wanted me in Singapore immediately. Your mother was 7 months pregnant. I know the timeline. You know the facts, not the choice. He forced himself to maintain eye contact. That morning, your mother asked me to stay just until you were born. 2 months, that's all. But the board said if I didn't go immediately, they'd find another CEO, another visionary. The company would move forward without me. So you chose the company. I chose fear. The admission scraped his throat raw. Fear of being ordinary, fear of becoming my father, a middle manager who died at his desk, remembered by no one. Fear that if I stayed, I'd spend my whole life wondering what I could have built. Catherine's hands tightened around her water glass. And my mother? Your mother was extraordinary, brilliant, kind, everything I wasn't. She deserved someone who could see that, value that. Instead, she got me, a 24-year-old boy who thought conquest mattered more than connection. She never said a bad word about you, not once. Even when she was dying, even when the medical bills were crushing us, she just said you were young, that you didn't know what you were giving up. She was wrong. I knew exactly what I was giving up. I just thought I was strong enough not to care. He pulled out his wallet, extracted something wrapped in tissue paper. This was hers. Catherine unwrapped it carefully. A small photo, the ultrasound from her mother's 5th month, herself before birth, the edges worn from handling. She gave it to me the day I left, said to keep it in case I ever wanted to remember what actually mattered. I've carried it for 20 years, through 37 countries, 4 marriages, hundreds of board meetings, a constant reminder of my worst decision. But you never came back. By the time I understood my mistake, your mother had stopped taking my calls, returned every check, built a wall between us that I deserved but couldn't climb. And you were better off without me. What could I offer except money and the burden of being Donovan Merrick's daughter? Catherine pulled something from her pocket, set it on the table between them. The Timex watch stopped at 11:47. Mom wore this until the day she died, never fixed it, never threw it away. I asked her once why she kept something broken. She said even broken things once kept perfect time. They deserve to be remembered for when they worked, not just for when they stopped. The restaurant noise faded, just the 2 of them in 20 years of absence. I found your letters, Catherine continued, the ones you wrote but never sent, hidden in your penthouse apartment. Your assistant, former assistant, gave me access during the transition. Donovan's breath caught. Those letters. One for every birthday he'd missed, every Christmas, every graduation. Never sent because what words could possibly bridge that gulf? You wrote about seeing my MIT graduation from across the stadium, about watching my first presentation at TechCrunch disrupt from the back row, about driving past our old house in Portland every time you came back to town. You weren't supposed to. To what? Know that you actually cared? That the great Donovan Merrick had feelings? Her voice cracked. Do you understand what that knowledge would have meant? To know you thought about me? That I wasn't just some forgettable mistake? You were never a mistake. Leaving you was the mistake. She laughed, bitter and short. Pretty words, 20 years too late. Yes, too late for your childhood. Too late for your mother. Too late for everything that mattered. He leaned back, suddenly exhausted. But maybe not too late for truth. You want to know the real reason I gave you Meridian? Enlighten me. Because you already won. Not the corporate battle. That was just tactics. You won the moment you walked into my boardroom and I saw your mother's strength in your eyes. Her determination. Her refusal to accept anything less than justice. But also my ambition. My ruthlessness. The worst and best of both of us, combined into someone neither of us could have imagined. Is that supposed to be a compliment? It's supposed to be a warning. He gestured to her hands clenched on the table. Look at yourself, 20 years old, and you've orchestrated the hostile takeover of a $40 billion company. You've destroyed careers, ruined reputations, wielded corporate law like a weapon, all for revenge, for justice. Same word, different spelling. I told myself that for 20 years. Every company I destroyed was justice for some perceived slight. Every family I broke apart was just business. Until I woke up alone in an 8,000 square foot tomb, surrounded by everything money could buy except the one thing it couldn't, a life worth living. Catherine stood abruptly. This was a mistake. Probably, but look at me. Really look. He remained seated, looking up at her. This is your future if you follow my path. Brilliant victories, empty rooms, and eventually, someone you wronged coming to collect what you owe. The cycle continues. You think giving me your company changes that? No, but maybe it gives you a choice I never saw. You have Meridian now. You can destroy it, prove your point, salt the earth. Or you can build something better, something your mother would have built if she'd had the chance, something worthy of the name Catherine Ashford. She stood there frozen between staying and leaving, between past and future. One more thing, Donovan said. Your mother's hospital bills, the account in Portland with the uncashed checks. There's 19 years of compound interest in there. Almost $4 million. It's yours, it was always yours. She just wanted you to take it on your own terms, not mine. Catherine's composure finally shattered. One tear, then another. Why tell me this now? Because you deserve the choice she never got. To take what's yours and build something extraordinary, or to walk away and build something entirely your own. Either way, you've already proven what I spent 20 years denying, that choosing family doesn't make you weak. Abandoning it does. 1 year later, Meridian Tower looked different. Not the structure, that remained the same glass and steel monument to ambition. But the lobby now featured a child care center where the executive gym used to be. The company offered 6 months parental leave, not the industry standard 6 weeks. Catherine Ashford's portrait hung next to the founder's wall, with a simple plaque, in memory of those who sacrificed so others might succeed. The merged company, Quantum Meridian, had become something neither Donovan nor Catherine had envisioned. Not just profitable, but purposeful. The Singapore office now ran a coding academy for disadvantaged youth. The Portland headquarters sponsored nursing students at the same hospital where Catherine Sr. died. Donovan worked there now, not as CEO or board member, as senior advisor for strategic development, reporting to his daughter. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, least of all him. The man who'd abandoned family for corporate power now answered to the family he'd abandoned. Thursday afternoons found him at Riverside Cemetery, Section G, Plot 47, Catherine Sr.'s grave. He brought flowers, roses at first, because that's what expensive flowers meant. Until Catherine Jr. corrected him. She hated roses, too pretentious. She loved tulips, yellow ones. They reminded her of spring in Portland before everything got complicated. So tulips it was. Yellow ones from the farmer's market, not the expensive florist downtown. He'd sit on the bench nearby, updating Catherine Sr. on her daughter's achievements. The Renewable Energy Initiative, the healthcare expansion, the scholarship program at Portland State. "She's extraordinary," he told the headstone one drizzly Thursday. "Got your heart and my head. Though honestly, mostly your heart. That's what makes her better at this than I ever was." "Talking to yourself again?" Catherine stood behind him, holding her own bunch of tulips. Purple ones, her mother's second favorite. "Talking to her, she's a good listener." "She always was." Catherine sat beside him on the bench, their first non-confrontational proximity in months. "The board meeting is tomorrow. We're voting on the Jakarta expansion. I saw the proposal. It's ambitious. It's necessary. But Richard Steinberg thinks we're moving too fast." "Steinberg thought I moved too slow. You can't please him. Don't try." They sat quietly watching rain beat on marble. The city hummed beyond the cemetery walls, but here, time moved differently. "David's parents want to meet you," Catherine said suddenly. David was her business partner at Quantum, though Donovan suspected more existed there. "We're having dinner Sunday. They think you should come." "As what? Your father?" "As my father. Complicated history and all." The invitation hung between them like morning fog, delicate, easily dispersed by the wrong word. "I don't know how to be a father." Neither did she at first. Catherine nodded toward her mother's grave. "She figured it out. Maybe you can too. 20 years late, but maybe that's better than never." "Sunday dinner." "Okay. Don't bring wine. David's parents are in recovery. Bring dessert. Something homemade if you can manage it." "I don't cook." "Then learn." She always said the best gifts require effort, not money. Catherine stood, placed her tulips beside his, purple and yellow intertwined. "We both have a lot to learn," she said, "but Mom would want us to try." As she walked away, Donovan remained on the bench, contemplating second chances and store-bought desserts that he'd claim were homemade. Small lies for new beginnings. 5 years passed before Donovan Merrick truly understood what Catherine Grace Ashford had given him. Not forgiveness. That would take longer, maybe forever. But something more valuable. Presence. The chance to witness who she'd become without him, and perhaps because of his absence. Quantum Meridian grew into something neither revenge nor ambition could have built alone. A bridge between two generations' definitions of success. The company topped Fortune's most admired list, not for profits but for purpose. Their family leave policy became Silicon Valley's gold standard. Their scholarship program sent 300 students to college, all studying fields their parents couldn't afford to dream about. Donovan learned new rhythms. Sunday dinners where business was banned from conversation. Birthday cards sent on time, not forgotten in pursuit of the next acquisition. Walking Catherine down an aisle he'd never thought he'd see. David waiting at the end with promises Donovan recognized. To choose family first, always. The penthouse apartment sold eventually. He bought a 2-bedroom cottage in Laurelhurst, walking distance from Catherine's home. Close enough to babysit when the grandchildren arrived. Far enough to respect boundaries 20 years in the making. Success, he learned, wasn't the empire you built, but the bridges you chose not to burn. The calls you answered at midnight. The school plays you attended. The hospital vigils you kept. The ordinary moments that, stacked together, built something more enduring than any corporation. His autobiography needed a new final chapter. Not about conquest or billions or revolutionary innovation. About a daughter who taught him that some takeovers liberate rather than imprison. That sometimes losing everything means finding what actually matters. This story shows that our choices echo through generations, but it's never too late to choose differently. If this moved you, share it with someone who needs to remember that success without family is the ultimate failure. Subscribe to the Penthouse Diaries for more stories that reveal the truth behind the billions.